once again for honoring our invitation. We've organized this press conference to update Nigerians on the efforts being made by the federal government to repatriate looted and smuggled Nigerian artifacts from all over the world. We also believe that you, as critical stakeholders, must be carried along in these efforts. Recall, gentlemen, that on the 28th of November 2019, I announced at a press conference here in Lagos the launching of the campaign for the return and restitution of Nigeria's looted or smuggled artifacts from around the world. I said that with the launch, we are putting on notice all those who are holding on to Nigeria's cultural property anywhere in the world that we are coming for them, using all legal and diplomatic instruments available to us. Less than 2 years later, I can report back to Nigerians that our efforts at repatriating Nigeria's looted artifacts are achieving positive results. The work ahead remains tough and daunting, but we will not relent until we have repatriated all our stolen and smuggled artifacts. These artifacts are so cherished all over the world, and we realize that if they are returned to Nigeria and properly exhibited within and outside the country under our control, they stand to increase the influx of tourists to our nation and also earn us good money. Of course, these timeless and priceless pieces of work are an important part of our past, of our history, of our heritage and resources, and allowing them to sit in the museums of other nations rob us of our history. Gentlemen, even though not everyone in possession of these artifacts is willing to return them, we remain undeterred as we have deployed all legal and diplomatic means, and we have been recording successes in our quest for repatriation. Here are some of the successes we have recorded since that press conference of 2019. In October 2020, the Netherlands returned a highly valued 600-year-old Ife terracotta to us. In March 2021, the University of Aberdeen in Scotland agreed to return a Benin bronze from its collections. We shall take possession of this in October this year. In April 2021, we received a bronze piece from Mexico. The University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom has also agreed to return a disputed Benin artifact. We will soon commence the procedure for the repatriation of this highly valued piece. We've also secured a date in October 2021 for the repatriation of antiquities from the Metropolitan Museum in New York. These antiquities consist of two important Benin bronzes and an exquisite Ife bronze head. We are currently before the Intergovernmental Committee for promoting the return of cultural property to its countries of origin or its restitution in case of illicit appropriation in Paris, where we have instituted a claim against a Belgian who wanted to auction an Ife bronze head valued at $5 million. This Ife bronze antiquity had been seized by the London Metropolitan Police pending the decision of who the true owner is. Of course, we all know that the true owner is Nigeria. The most remarkable progress in our quest to repatriate our looted artifacts has been recorded in Germany, which is currently working with us for the repatriation of a whopping 1,130 Benin bronzes to Nigeria. As you are all aware, we recently returned from Germany, where I led a high-level Nigerian delegation to iron out the modalities for the repatriation. During this trip, our delegation met with Professor Monica Gruntas, who is the German Minister of State for Culture, who has responsibility for antiquities. We also met with the German Foreign Minister, Mr. Heiko Maas. We met with the Secretary of State in the German President's Office, Mr. Steven Steinlein, and we met with Hermann Pazinger, who is the President of the Prussian Cultural Heritage Foundation, which is the center of the German culture establishment, and his team. We also met with the directors of at least 20 major museums in Germany. The negotiations were tough, but very fruitful. We've agreed that there is no going back on the issue of returning the Benin bronzes at that meeting. At the meetings in Germany, our delegation insisted, and it was resolved, that the issue of provenance research on the Benin bronze cannot and must not delay their return, since the origin of Benin objects is not a subject of dispute, as such objects are only associated with the Benin Kingdom. On the German authorities' proposal to return a substantial part of the Benin bronzes, I'm happy to say that we've agreed that the issue of substantial should not be the case. The entire 1,130 artifacts should be returned to Nigeria, and this should be done without any condition precedent. Concerning recording the artifacts in 3D formats for posterity and academic sake under the Digital Benin project, of which we are a part, we have told the Germans that this work of digitalizing the Benin bronze must not delay the return of the artifacts, and that issues related to copyright, ownership, and other rights over the digitalized objects will be discussed later. We also agreed to have a definite timeline for the repatriation of the artifacts, because Nigeria is tired of an indefinite timeline. Thereafter, it was resolved that the agreement on the repatriation should be signed latest by December this year, and that the repatriation should be concluded by August 2022. We made our German counterparts realize that Nigeria is averse to attaching preconditions to repatriating the Benin bronzes. We made it clear that these are our properties, and it is not be proper to give us conditions for releasing them. We therefore agreed that the release will be unconditional, neither will it be staggered. It must be noted, however, that the meetings in Germany were not only about repatriating these objects. We have decided that the repatriation of the artifacts should not be the end of an era, but rather the beginning of a new vista of stronger relations and collaboration, pivoted by cultural diplomacy between Nigeria and Germany. In this regard, there are other benefits accruing to Nigeria from the ongoing talks. There will be archaeological training for Nigerians, for instance. The Nigerian side and the German side agreed also to Nigeria's proposal to use the repatriated artifacts and other works of art to inspire Nigeria's creative industry towards realizing its high potential towards realizing its high potential. For this and other purposes, it was agreed that the Germans would facilitate the establishment of museum academies in Nigeria. Gentlemen, the federal government is aware of the widely reported controversy on who will take possession of the Benin bronzes when they are returned from Germany. Let me state clearly here that in line with international best practices and the operative conventions and laws, the return of the artifacts is being negotiated bilaterally between the national governments of Nigeria and Germany. Nigeria is the entity recognized by international law as the authority in control of antiquities originating from Nigeria. The relevant international conventions treat heritage properties as properties belonging to the nation and not to individuals or subnational groups. For example, the 1970 UNESCO Convention, in its Article 1, defines cultural property as property specifically designated by the nation. This allows individual nations to determine what it regards as its cultural property. Nevertheless, the Nigerian state, through the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the National Commission for Museum in control of antiquities originating from Nigeria. The relevant international conventions treat heritage properties as properties belonging to the nation and not to individuals or subnational groups. For example, the 1970 UNESCO Convention, in its Article 1, defines cultural property as property specifically designated by the nation. This allows individual nations to determine what it regards as its cultural property. Nevertheless, the Nigerian state, through the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, has been working assiduously over the past years to repatriate our looted artifacts carried along our important traditional institutions and state governments. What we are saying, in essence, is that the federal government will take possession of these antiquities because it is its duty to do so, in line with the extant laws. But we have always exercised this right in cognizance of that culture that produced the artworks. That is why the Ministry of Information and Culture and the National Commission for Museums and Monuments have always involved both the Edo State government and the Royal Benin Palace in discussions and negotiations that have now resulted in the impending return of these antiquities. Please note that we are not just involved in the repatriation of Benin artifacts, we are also working on repatriating Ife bronzes and terracotta, Nok terracotta, or terracotta, the arts of the Benue River Valley, the Igbo Uku, the arts of Bida, the art of Igala, Jukum, etc. Recall, gentlemen, our efforts over the Igbo statues that were auctioned at Christie's in year 2020, and the fact that we took the British and Belgian authorities to ICPRCP in 2019 over an Ife object. Finally, I want to most sincerely commend the government of Germany for taking the lead in the global efforts to repatriate all artifacts that were looted from Nigeria and indeed from the African continent. As I said during the meeting in Berlin, we see Germany as a leader in the efforts to take practical steps to repatriate our stolen artifacts, and we hope Germany will sustain that lead. I also want to thank Governor Obaseki of Edo State, who was with us all through the tough negotiation in Benin, and His Royal Majesty the Oba of Benin, who sent the Benin Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Ezelekaya Eware, to be a part of the return delegation to Berlin. We thank all Nigerians, especially the media, for their support for our efforts to repatriate all our looted artifacts. Gentlemen, once again, I thank you for listening. I will now take a few questions. Then the first question is, how do we warehouse it? And I would say this. One, we agreed in Germany that the returning of these artifacts should not be based on any condition, whether there's a museum or no museum. Now, I will say this for many reasons. I don't think if you steal my car, and my car is, and the police recover my car from you, you can't tell me that I must build a garage before you return my car. Where do you steal it from? Now, but on a more serious note, I made this clear in Germany, that some of these artifacts are more than 300, 400 years old, even before they were stolen. How are they preserved? We had the local technology to preserve. But this is without, prejudice to the fact that the government is working in partnership with many organizations to provide museum infrastructure in the country. And part of the agreement we, arrived at in Germany is that this is not just about returning of artifacts. It's about even, setting up museum academies. It's about investing in infrastructure to, preserve artifacts. But what we are saying is that none of this should be condition precedent to returning of the artifacts. When the artifacts are returned, we would definitely know how to preserve them, we know how to exhibit them. And like we said earlier, it's even part of our own program that when these artifacts are returned, we would probably have them exhibited even outside Nigeria. We even them, it's what is called, traveling exhibition. Then we also can decide, as and when appropriate, where to loan it and at what terms and condition. But none of this will be condition precedent to the returning of the artifacts. The second question is about whether we are sure that what they are going to return is original or not. We do have a lot of confidence in our German, counterparts, and we believe we do the needful. But I think the DG NCMM would give you more technical explanation as to that. The last question is about what is the interest of the gentleman, the Belgian, who is holding on to our artifacts. It's money. He wants $5 million for it, because when he went to value it, at an auction house in London, and when he got the price, he was so excited, not knowing that the Metropolitan Police would intervene, because we had already notified the Interpol and every other organization that this piece was stolen from Jos Museum. So when he got the auction, he got the value, and it was intercepted, he now offered, he now pleaded that he bought in good faith, and we should compensate him. But he's asking for about $5 million, which not only we don't have, but this is we cannot be rebuying our own property from somebody who bought from a thief. I think I will allow Professor Tijani to please, if there are any technical issues that I have not covered, to please, go to the issues.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Regarding the Belgian who actually has possession of artifacts, which he is now with the Metropolitan Museum in UK. I think, as an art dealer, he wants to, he wants to get money for it. Basically, that's what it is. And one, funny thing is that he wants us to compensate him for these artifacts. Otherwise, he will go to court to claim ownership. And how can somebody steal something from you and then you compensate for this person? So we are setting precedents, which means any other artifacts that are stolen, then the person can claim, to be paid, compensation. So under the 1970 UNESCO Convention, that any illicit trafficking of artifacts, we have to claim. We have to lay our ownership, and that is why this one is going to the UNESCO, committee. That is the state now. So we are not ready to pay any compensation for that. That is just a little bit on that. And then the second aspect, the question which relates to the, how do we authenticate, our artifacts? I mean, we are the NCMM, the National Commission for Museums and Monuments. We're a professional body, so we have our curators, our documentation officers, our exhibition officers, our archaeologists, our ethnographers. All these technical teams are there to identify any artifacts. That is one. We know the history. We know by mere looking at the artifacts, the various inscriptions on the artifacts, the features and everything will enable us to know. You may not know. You will see the features, but you will not understand. So we'll be able to differentiate between a replica of the artifacts from the original. So we have that technicality. And in the first place, I want us to understand that, we know these artifacts are, out of our possession for decades. And therefore, that doesn't mean that we don't have the technical know-how. We have been in contact with them, and most of these artifacts, we have similar, objects here in our museums. So by the time we get these objects to be repatriated, our technical team will be in Germany to verify, that we don't want to waste time and resources, bring in artifacts and we find that they are not originals. So we want to do this verification at the point before they are actually repatriated. So we have agreed that with our German colleagues, and we are going to do that, and our technical experts will be there to verify these artifacts before they are being repatriated. Thank you very much.